Thrilled today to be joined by John Black, the CEO of both Aldebaran and Regulus. Good to have you with us today, John.
Great to catch up with you, Romeo.
Awesome. So I got a bunch of questions. They're going to kind of range all over from your personal life into projects. So I hope you're ready for a bit of a grilling.
Okay.
John, based on your bio, you're an economic geologist with obviously lots of global experience. I'm curious if you could share, and I love asking people this, what initially got you to embark on a career in mineral exploration? Was it one of those things where geology was always in the cards for you, or was there a moment where it calcified?
Well, I grew up in the Cascade Mountains in Oregon. My father was a forester, and we moved around in small towns in the mountains. So I grew up living in the outdoors. I think science and nature were always a driver for me and something of interest. But when I went to university, I actually went to university thinking more about environmental sciences, so environmental law, something along those lines. But in the first year, I took a geology course, and I found my passion, really. It was a combination of something that really intrigued me and great people to be involved with and work with, and it just that was it. As soon as I took that course, I knew that was the direction I was going, and it didn't take long to move into economic geology after that. It's something that I tell my kids and students when I speak to students too, is don't pick a profession because you think you're going to make a lot of money, or because your dad did it, or your folks did that, or somebody's pushing you. That find what your passion is, and it just makes life so much easier all the way around. And I was very fortunate. That's what I found, and nothing better than something that, geology is a discipline that combines science and art together. And so you have that creativity as well as a strong science background. And on top of it, you get to travel and see the world too. So it couldn't be anything better. So.
Yeah, there's lots to love there. It's always something when people find their passion. It's always nice to see. One thing I'm curious about, what motivated you, 'cause most people don't do this, to transition from being an employee to becoming a CEO? What was that path like? How was the transition? And what did you learn during that part of the process?
Great question. I spent the first probably 25 of my years of my career working for major mining companies. And that was great. It's a great way to get a really solid foundation in the business. You get exposed not just to the exploration end of it that we do, but you get exposed to understand the mining part of it and what really drives a major mining company. It's a perfect place to get that really sound base. But in the early 2000s, I found myself in a situation where there was a big downturn in the market. And budgets were scarce. You were lucky if you were holding on to your job, and it wasn't as fun anymore is what it amounted to. We started really focusing on safety and process and things like that. Safety is very fundamental, but you can't let it drive yourself to the point that we became very safe because we were mostly sitting in the office writing up safety protocols, and it's
That's safe. Yeah.
hard to have any changes there. And so it wasn't as exciting and as fun, and it seemed like I was weighted down on it. And some friends approached me with the idea of forming a junior company, anticipating an upturn in metals prices, and it clicked. It was a major jump for me and my family. We'd recently been married. We were expecting our first child. I think our families thought I was crazy for jump into something that you didn't have health insurance and a safety net on. But the opportunity to do exactly what I'd been trained to do and what I've been doing for major companies, but with a smaller group in a more agile manner, more stake in it, both in terms of financial stake and personal stake, but also decision making, the ability to drive what we were doing. And it really attracted me, and it turned out to be a great move for me in this case. So and you'll see it. You mentioned it's not that common, but actually there are quite a few of us that have that pattern where we've worked for particularly people of my generation, where we've worked for major companies, and then we've jumped over into the junior space. And a lot of times it's just because you're able to work more quickly, you're able to move on things, and it doesn't hurt that you have a greater personal stake in it. A lot more responsibility too, but if everything goes well, it tends to be more beneficial for you.
That makes sense. And you did mention your team. I know team at Aldebaran and Regulus have developed a strong reputation. I know them and like a number of them quite well. I'm curious if you could explain your philosophy on the importance of building a reliable and trustworthy team and why it's important in exploration particularly.
Well, one of the things when we set up, and when I say we, the founders of our groups are Kevin Hesler, who's our Chief Geological Officer, Mark Wayne, who's our CFO. The three of us were really the core that started AntaKori as our first company, and now Regulus and Aldebaran. And we had to determine a little bit of what type of a company we would be. There are a lot of different styles of junior companies. And what we chose to do was to leverage off the experience and the contacts and the knowledge that both Kevin and I have in South America to identify projects that already have pretty good indications that there's something there, but that we felt had potential to be much larger and much more economically robust. So we're purposely looking for large copper or copper gold deposits that would be of a size and an economic viability that would be of interest to a major company. So what we're trying to do is shorten the time frame. We're not miners. You don't want us to be developing a mine. Grassroots exploration is a great way to do things if you have a clever idea in a new area, but we felt that our niche was really picking up projects where the discovery had already been made, but maybe not fully appreciated. And so part of our philosophy is we're delivering a project that a major mining company would like to pay us handsomely for and turn into a mine. And for us to do that, we have to do everything exactly like the major miners would do. And so we hold ourselves to a high standard of how we work and how we interact with the communities in the area we're at, the quality of the data we're putting together. One trap that a junior company can fall into is to cut corners and try to do things too fast. And then you end up with a project that may be an interesting project, but you may not be able to develop yourself or sell it to someone else. And so that integrity and that quality of our work was a fundamental part of our philosophy to start out. And so we've tried to maintain that all the way through. We also have a strong relationship with all of our investors, and it takes a long time to execute what we do. We always think that, okay, we're going to find this and have it ready to go in a year or two. And it requires patience and trust on all parts. And the best way to develop that relationship is to maintain a high degree of integrity. And it's not just us. As the founders and principals of the company, it's really the full team. Everybody has to be bought into that, and everybody has to have a sense of ownership. It's you asked me some of the things we learned when we first started this style of company and made the transition. Is I think when I was an exploration geologist for a major mining company, I think it'd be fair to say I bumped heads with some of the people in HR and accounting and safety and logistics and things like that, because it always felt like they were kind of making it harder for me to get my work done. I had to fill out this form, or I had to do that. When you form your own company, you realize the importance of all that, because you have to do all of those same things, but you don't have the systems in place. You don't have the people in place. And I appreciate those people much more running a small company, because I realized what they were doing now. So we have to do that ourselves and build a team that can do it. And we're naturally a smaller team than a big company, but you have to get really good people that you trust, because there's no way that myself or Kevin or Mark or Adam Greening or our country managers can do all of those things ourselves. We have to delegate that to people, and we have to have really solid people that can do that. And so and many of us have to wear many hats on this and go forward. So if I don't have a solid team doing the work we have on the ground, nothing will work. And so it's really critical that you build that team, particularly if you're thinking about moving from one company and a success to the next company to the next company. If you're building a group that will have serial success, you need to have that strong team.
No, it makes total sense. I do want to get into the assets specifically. What attracted you at first to yourself and Dr. Kevin to the Peruvian Argentina assets managed by Aldebaran and Regulus?
As I mentioned, our business strategy is we're trying to find projects that have that potential to be a really big project. And the vast majority of projects don't turn out to be an economically viable deposit.
Sure.
And so with our strategy, it's really important that we use good selection criteria to pick the project. So we sort through a lot of projects when we set up the company or when we make a transition to a new company. And we put a pretty high filter on those. And one of the things is we have to see potential that the project will be large enough and of a quality that it can be turned into a major mine. We don't want to find something that's small or find something that's not economically viable. So we have to see those indications. And each project's a little bit different. The AntaKori project, our flagship project in Regulus, was one that we'd known about for a long time. It was out there that there'd been some exploration by other junior companies earlier with some pretty spectacular results. But our perception was always that it was extremely complicated, not because of the geology. It was complicated because of the land situation and the social history of the project. And to be honest, we felt it was a project that was too much work to acquire and set up to go forward with. And so it was on our target list, but lower down because we felt we could find something that was better. And it was actually First Quantum. First Quantum is the company that we sold our first discovery. Our first company was called Antares. We made a nice discovery in Akira and sold that project to First Quantum. It was First Quantum that flagged us and said, hey, you might want to talk to Fernando Pickman about the AntaKori project. We said, yeah, we love the rocks. It's a great deposit, but it's a little bit messy, isn't it? He said, talk to Fernando and see what he's got there. Fernando Pickman's a lawyer in Lima, specializing in mining space, and had helped a lot of junior companies set up. And Fernando had quietly consolidated the district and solved a lot of the complicated land situations. He had original ownership groups with 100 family members that didn't all get along, and it's very hard to acquire projects. He had patiently and diligently put all that together and assembled a really interesting portion of the district. And when we sat down, we knew Fernando, we sat down and talked to him about it, and it just opened our eyes. It's like, wow, we might be able to get in on this project. And so that was how that one worked, was realizing that he had solved part of the problem, and he had the project and local knowledge and a good legal team. We had the technical team and the recent success and the financial backing. So it was a natural merger between the two of us to go forward. So that would, quite frankly, that remains a project the challenge there is consolidation of the district, further consolidation of the district to reveal that potential. If it had been owned by 100% by one group, it would have been a mine a long time ago. And so I think we're on the cusp of getting that solved now and having that turn into a pretty exciting opportunity. Altar with Aldebaran was a little bit different. It was also a project we'd known about. It had been out there. Peregrine Metals, an Eric Friedland company, had done a lot of work on it. We knew the guys that were doing the work. They drilled out a portion of the deposit and actually sold it to Stillwater Mining for pretty handsome sum. And but what we started hearing about, and this would have been about 2012, 2013, and in that period of time, downturn in the market, we started hearing about new exploration results coming out of it. So Stillwater purchased the project, but it never really fit with them. Stillwater was a platinum producer that had an early stage copper project in Argentina. And but we started hearing about results that made it evident that not all was known about the district. And we realized there was potential for more discovery, for it to be even better than what it was thought to be. And it was in a company that didn't seem to be a natural fit. So we started pestering him to see what might happen there. And the key on that one is that Sibanye bought Stillwater and marked this as a non-core asset and indicated to ourselves and a number of other companies that were monitoring that it might be available. And so we made a proposal to Sibanye Stillwater to bring the project forward. So we acquired a project that already had a large resource, had been sold at one point for nearly $500 million. We acquired it for, quite frankly, pennies on the dollar as an option to earn into 80%. And with the idea, not not simply to acquire something at a low point in the market to repackage it. We felt that there was potential for more to be there, and that's what we've been showing over the last couple of years. Is we've discovered an entirely new zone, and it's really taking off. And then we've been fortunate that things are improving in Argentina, and we're coming back into a pretty exciting point in the copper market when people are seeking these things. So timing worked out really well for us. So a lot of it's just knowing about something and then looking for the right entry point. How can you acquire the project under reasonable terms, and then be able to show the full potential of it.
And for Aldebaran, can you comment on the significance of the upcoming mineral resource update and PEA?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited on this. We've spent the last 3 seasons drilling out a new discovery. Effectively, the known copper mineralization at the Altar deposit has been in 2 zones, Altar Central and Altar East. And when we were doing the due diligence on the project, Kevin saw things in there that he thought there might be a third center in it. And as we began to explore, we completed some deep looking geophysical surveys using improved technologies to allow us to image more deeply. And we got a great anomaly right where we thought there could be another system. And that's turned out to be the case. So we call the new discovery Altar United. It effectively unites the 2 previously known zones, and all will fall into one large pit. So we've completed 63,000 meters of new drilling since our last resource. And keep in mind, our current resources is about 1.4 billion tons of moderate grade porphyry copper mineralization. This new zone, just looking through the images and the information we present, it's pretty evident that it'll be a significant increase. So we finished our last program in May of this year. All the results are out now, and we're actively working with a third party to do the new resource estimate. So that'll be out in Q4 this year. And we're pretty excited to see that come out. And with that in hand, that'll set us up to do a PEA next year. So there are 2 very major reports coming out within the next 8 to 12 months on the project. So it's a great time to be catching it on top of everything else that's happening in Argentina right now, which is improving it as a destination for investment into major mining projects.
Sure, a lot coming in Q4.
Yeah.
And for Regulus, can you tell me about the recently signed agreement with Coimolache?
Sure. With just as a bit of a reminder for those that might not be familiar with it, at our AntaKori project, what we have is a portion of a very large copper gold sulfide deposit, and the other portion of the deposit falls onto the neighbor's ground. It's a joint venture called the Coimolache joint venture with Southern Copper, Buenaventura, and Espro, 3 parties that manage that joint venture. And they're mining the oxide cap, just heap leach for gold and silver, over the top of this very large copper gold sulfide system that's partly on their ground and partly on our ground. And that fragmented nature of the project makes it challenging for us to show the full size potential of the deposit, and likewise for them as well. And so it's well known in the geologic community, but it's out in the public, the full potential of this deposit's not as evident. So we've worked in a series of collaborative agreements with the neighbors to be able to explore it. But the most recent agreement we announced is one where we'll work together for the first time to put a consolidated resource together. So do a resource estimate as if there weren't land boundaries in it. The agreement stipulates that we'll do this work together. We're not allowed to present it publicly unless we have mutual agreement to present the information. But this first stage allows all of us with interest in the district to fully understand the prize, and we can have a better discussion on what's the best path forward. Our strong belief, with very good reason, is that this district is best exploited in a large scale by major mining companies in a consolidated manner, and I think this work will show that.
Great. Now, if you don't mind, I want to zoom out just a bit. I know you've navigated through multiple market cycles. Can you share your perspective on what's going on with copper right now? Do you think we're in a super cycle? What do you think the future is going to look like?
Well, copper is like many metals, or have a definite cyclicity to them, and I guess I have the benefit of many decades doing this now, so I've
not too many
ridden through a few of these cycles, and they're each one's different, but but boy, they're the same in many ways too. And it's just the nature of our business where when the metal prices are down, we don't explore, we don't develop new projects, and then sooner or later there's a scarcity of metal, and metal price shoots up, and then we explore like crazy. And it's part of our strategy, actually, because you'll notice that the type projects that we find, if we get on the right project and have it ready to go, but we're presenting that to the market in a downturn in the copper prices, the majors aren't in a position to buy it. You would think, why don't they buy companies like us when prices are down? Well, we're not going to part with it if we can help it. And in many cases, the majors don't even buy them then, because they're under pressure for profit. They often slash their exploration budgets. They often focus on dividends to shareholders, and we joke that commonly the major mining companies, in a downturn in metal prices, they fire the CEO and put in a more financially oriented CEO and an accountant type.
Sure.
And then when we get back into a super cycle or a boom on it, then they often claim that person's too conservative, and they put in a geologist who's more aggressive to focus on growth. And it's not that far from the truth in many cases. And so what I believe right now is that we saw a tremendous super cycle from about 2006 to about 2011. Mm-hmm. And that's the first time we saw copper really break out strongly over $3 and up to in the $4 range on copper. That's when our first company delivered a very good project and executed our business plan and sold that. From about 2011 until recently, we've really been in a bit of a downturn in the copper market overall. Prices haven't been bad by any means at all, but they haven't been so strong, and the forecast for copper hasn't been so strong that it's motivated the development of new mines. As a consequence, we don't see a lot of new supply coming on. And the existing mines are tending to drop in grade, and they're struggling to maintain production. And so it means the supply is challenged right when we're seeing a strong increase in demand. And that demand is, it's easy to point to electric vehicles and renewable energy as requiring a lot more copper, but it's much more than that. Now we're seeing AI emerge in these data centers that require tremendous amounts of electricity, and you need copper for that as well. And when we look at it closely, it's just general population growth. The world continues to grow in size, and that means we need more copper. Copper's doubled in demand approximately every 20 or 25 years for the last 120 years. And so it's not simply EVs. And if that slows down, there still will be a tremendous demand. And the major miners can see that. Major governments see that now as well. And there's a lot of concern about acquiring assets and being in a position to produce more copper. If the world is to meet the goals that are set out by most major countries now to reduce carbon emissions, it'll require us to almost double the amount of production that we've had. And so, and that's just not easy. As an industry, we're going to struggle to do that. And that plays well into our hands, because if we're delivering projects that can be turned into new copper mines, it's a perfect time to be doing it. So in a more micro sense, earlier this year, we saw copper break out to a new high over $5. And all major producers went up in price. Most juniors went up in price too. Over the summer, it's dropped 20%, and we're dropping off, which amuses me because the fundamentals are there for copper to be strong for a long time now. And the major companies that we interact with that monitor both of our projects are clearly motivated to be evaluating projects and acquire new projects. So they're looking at a longer term. The market kind of goes through its little ups and downs on what I think is an overall upward trajectory. So I believe we're entering into another strong cycle for copper. In an M&A sense, what's typical on this is we often see in the front part of this where companies focus on acquiring producing assets. And over the last 2 years, there have been quite a number of producing assets that have been purchased by major companies. The reason they focus on those first is because it's much safer to buy something in production. You get that production instantly. It's easier to evaluate it and know what a fair price is. And quite frankly, many of the producers have been undervalued until recently. And so that's a natural spot for it to go to. As metal prices have picked up and as the value of companies moved up, it's less attractive and more difficult to buy that production. We're still seeing a few really splashy attempts like BHP trying to buy Anglo and things like that,
Sure.
but the price is kind of running on them too. So the natural next stage, in our opinion, is moving towards the pre-production assets, the type projects that we have in each of our companies. And so we've been predicting for some time now that at any time we'll start to see companies begin to acquire those type assets. And it's actually starting to come true over the last few months. We saw Rex Minerals be acquired for a pretty nice price in Australia recently. And then more recently, BHP moving strongly on the Vicuña district with Filo and
Sure.
Jose Maria. So we're beginning to see that. I think it's just the leading edge of it. So we couldn't be more pleased right now. We think we've got two excellent projects that will be delivering into a point in time when people are going to be seeking these and acquiring these.
Can I ask you to look into a crystal ball for a few seconds and think towards the future? Do you think Aldebaran and Regulus will be your final mining ventures? What does the future look like for you?
It's a common topic of discussion around the dinner table.
I bet.
I think we're sitting on two really great assets. I think we'll likely see a natural conclusion to these stories in the next year to maybe 3 years, and it'd be easy for me to say I'm well set up financially. I'm at a time when it'd be great to retire. There's a lot of other stuff I'd like to be doing,
Sure.
but the reality for myself and most people that do what I do is it's kind of hard to stop. And I think I'll probably be involved in mineral exploration for most of my life. It'd be great if I perhaps take more of an advisory role and step back. We've got some great people in our team that could pick up the reins and keep going. And I'd like to be involved. It's something that brings me great joy to do, and it becomes easier the more you do it and the more success you have. So I'd be lying if I say I would stop after those two. I'm quite certain I'll continue in some form or another.
No,
So.
fair enough. Finally, this is just for fun. It's a weekend in the summer in Colorado, and miraculously, you're not working. You finished everything you needed to finish by Friday afternoon. Where would we find you?
I'm laughing to myself because in the junior space, the weekends kind of blend in. There's kind of like no boundary on here on stuff sometimes. In the summertime, what I would really love to be doing is sneaking up to the mountains and wetting a fly line, and I like to fly fish, and I'm fortunate there's some pretty good places within an hour, 2-hour drive from home here. So that I really love. Also, probably in the summer, there's always a lot to do around the house. We enjoy keeping our garden going and things like that. Well, my son plays competitive soccer or football as it's known in most of the world, and so there's usually a game in there someplace too or something like that. So it's a mix of family stuff around the house here and sneaking off into the mountains. And sometimes I guess while I'm fly fishing, I'm always looking for that nice little piece of property that I could build the cabin on someday. So maybe if we can get these two companies done, then I can take that passion somewhere. So
there's something to look forward to. Well, John, this was great. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Great. Thanks, Romeo.